Hey, Rahan, got news for you.
Yeah.
You may not believe this, but I really love dogs.
Oh, I love them too. But the fact of the matter is, I don't have one.
Shame on you. But you
I
know what? Thankfully, a lot of people out there do. And today, that's what we're going to be talking about.
Great. Let's get into it.
Okay. I am lucky enough to share my life with two wonderful German Shepherds, my particular breed of choice. Around
Uh,
the world, there are tons of different breeds of dogs, and dogs mean many different things to many different people and many different cultures.
and I am also lucky enough to have survived from two of the dogs attacking me on the street. However, I still love them.
Well, it must be because you taste really good for them.
Surely, I wouldn't want to be meat to any dogs or any animal for that instance.
Well, look, to be fair, any animal that is not in captivity is going to be looking for food in any way, shape, or form. And hey, your leg just happened to look good for that particular dog or that particular day, you know? So now, the thing about dog ownership, okay, for one thing, we should talk about the fact that there is a worldwide overpopulation of dogs
Which
because of irresponsible breeding, because of owners not neutering or spaying animals. And then that can create a problem, of course.
other than that, we have some issues where our governments are also not able to control this population of stray animals, be that dogs or cats. But specifically speaking, there is a huge influx of dogs which are out on the streets, surviving and breeding as they go along.
Unfortunately, one of the methods that they try population control is getting dogs and cats without homes into municipal style shelters where they are euthanized only for the purpose of overpopulation, not because they're unhealthy or have behavioral issues. And that becomes a problem that we'll talk about in a little while. First, I'm going to talk about the positive things about dog ownership. For one thing, you get to have a companion or two or three or many, however you can afford, and your local legislator allows. Dogs have health benefits to humans. They lower your blood pressure. They help cardiology. People who are suffering from heart problems do better with dogs. They actually have been shown to expand people's lives because they are comfort. They are your companions. They are your family members. There is a distinction I always call out when people say dogs are like family. Here, at least in this country, the word "like" bothers me. They're not like family. They are family. They are living beings. They are your responsibility. They come into your home. You take care of them. They are there for you. They are your family.
And they come into your home with your permission. You are the one who actually go out to get them to your home. So relate to that.
But there are areas of the world where dogs are utilitarian. They are used for hunting. They are used for herding, which many dog breeds are. They're used for job purposes. Even the military and police use dogs in service for search and rescue, for contraband detection. Unfortunately, sometimes they also use them for suspect apprehension, which I'll talk about in a little while because I'm sort of against that. But, you know,
Other than that, we in this part of the world, in Pakistan, most of the times that I've come across, people have dogs specifically for protection purposes. They have their dogs in their houses, just as Mark said, another utilitarian part of their being is that they are used for your protection.
We have protection purposes here too, but I'll tell you, as a dog owner, what I find really odd, when you walk around two German Shepherds, they are one of the breeds that military and the police will use for some of the things I just mentioned before. People go, oh, your dogs probably protect you. And the answer is, yeah, if need be, sure. But the truth of the matter is they're more like my children. And if something were to happen, I'm going to be protecting them before I'm worried about them protecting me, you know?
Yeah.
So I do love them that much. Now, I just want to say that there's no necessarily right or wrong way to look at your dog ownership, as long as they are being cared for properly. And as long as they are given food and shelter and given, love, that is important. They are emotional beings. You got to keep something in mind here, that even if your dogs are utilitarian, we bred dogs from wolves. All these different kinds of dogs come from gray wolves, which through evolution, through our particular needs, we sort of designed a whole different animal from a wolf to dogs, which range from tiny little Chihuahuas to huge Newfoundlands and possibly larger. And they all fit different purposes in our lives, generally speaking. But they are companions. They were domesticated wolves, and they do require companionship from us, love from us. That is an important thing that you have to give them, my opinion. Dogs are used in police work. Are they used in police work over in Pakistan?
They are used here as well, but not to the extent as you see in your country.
Okay, so sometimes when a police officer is trying to apprehend a running suspect, they'll release the dog to go after the perpetrator and to capture, the perpetrator instead of running after them themselves. Dogs are faster, I get that. However, the problem is that dogs can be shot, dogs can be knifed by perpetrators, and ultimately can die as a result of suspect apprehension. And then you read about these stories, and then everyone goes, oh my God, the dog was a hero. The dog did incredible service. Okay, look, dog is not a hero in this regard. A dog does not have a sense of morality about putting its life on the line for a job. The dog only knows, I have a job to do. I have a handler or an owner that I'm supposed to do the job for to please that owner, and they go and do it. They don't have any idea that they could potentially lose their lives as a result of what they do. We tend to romanticize this idea of them being heroes, and what we're really doing is we are unfairly putting their lives in danger when we have a trained officer that should be the one doing their job. That's my opinion. I understand that's going to probably set a few people off, but that's okay. The police department in Detroit was the first department in the United States to remove the role of suspect apprehension from their canine division. They're still used in search and rescue. They're still used in contraband detection, but no longer are they used to capture suspects. And I wish other police departments across the country and the world would follow suit in this regard.
So you can also relate to how dogs are utilized in your country, in your region. And if you are a dog owner, if you're a dog lover, how you feel about it. You can share in the comment section below about your feelings towards having a dog, or your experiences that you might have had of having a dog with us in the comment section below.
Keep in mind, we do understand that there is different cultural perspectives and use perspectives where dogs are concerned, and it is healthy to discuss them, even if you have opposing viewpoints. But as we always remind people, be respectful, do not be insulting, stick to facts,
So there's something that Mark shared with me a couple of years back, if I remember correctly. He shared a photo of Diana, one of his German shepherds, a cub really at the age of few weeks, I believe, when Diana was just a few weeks. He shared an image of her, and I asked him, where did you get her from? So he told me, I get her from this, and that. The conversation then started to discussing about dog breeding, which is one of the common things in Pakistan amongst those breeds of dogs which are considered to be rather important or expensive. Mark explained back then how it is not healthy to keep breeding dogs at a very short amount of time. Mark, what's the appropriate amount of time that a dog mother should have before giving birth to another batch of children, another batch of
There are,
dogs?
yeah, there are different schools of thought of that, and there's no exact science because different breeds of dogs with their different sizes and different lifespans um, will have different requirements, have different start point, end points. As a German Shepherd owner, I will tell you responsible breeding will not start for the most part until sexual maturity and full growth of the female has taken place. And that can usually stop at 18 months, 2 years, and responsible breeders will stop at maybe 3 litters, maybe 1 litter per year, and then that's it, give them a break. You don't want to overpopulate animals because they're already, they're breeding normally as they do. People backyard breed their dogs, meaning they don't spay or neuter their dogs and they mate their dogs, or their dogs, wind up in heat and they become pregnant. And before you know it, we have overpopulation and we have dogs in the shelter looking for home. Now, breeding, we have I would say a contingent of people who are not fans of breeding at all. I can't agree with that because we did specifically design different dog breeds for different purposes, ranging from work that I had mentioned to aesthetics. So your favorite dog breeds were indeed created, and most of us, I think, would want to keep our favorite breeds going. That being said, sometimes popular breeds get overbred and poorly bred by unscrupulous people who only are looking for money. And they treat these dogs as breeding stock, and they're treated horribly. And they're called puppy mills here in the United States, where they're kept in horrible conditions, where they're bred litter after litter, and then they're just sold just for profit. And the dogs wind up being unhealthy, and they're underfed, they're improperly bred, they're inbred sometimes. Now, there is such a thing as ethical breeding. Ethical breeding is a person, a breeder, who really does love the breed of their dog. They will research genetics. They will test every single animal for specific health conditions that breeds are susceptible to, make sure they're clear of it, breed the puppies in very controlled situations. The dogs are also family members. They're not put out in a pen somewhere. They're bred inside the home, and they're treated lovingly and protected in an enclosed environment with their owners. And these ethical breeders don't just sell their puppies to anyone. They make sure that a person who is buying their dog fits a certain lifestyle for the breed. They will background check the person buying the dog. They will call the vet if the potential buyer had previous dogs. They will get references about how they were as a dog owner before they agree to sell one of their puppies to someone. The unethical breeders are the ones who just do it for money. And of course, then we have a problem on our hands of overpopulation, which sometimes leads to euthanasia.
So when when these breeders breed more dogs, how does it impact an animal? And I'm speaking mentally. When when a mother gives birth to, let's say, five or six dogs, and they're immediately taken away from her, or they're immediately taken away after 5 days, 7 days from her, how does that impact the mother and the children?
Okay, first, that's too soon. They're not going to be taking them away after 5 days or a week or something like that because they're going to die. They do need their mother's milk. There is usually, ideally speaking, you want to keep a puppy with the mother around 3 months of age. That's my opinion. There are some people who figure that 6 weeks is fine. That as soon as they start weaning, as soon as they start, their deciduous teeth start coming in, and they can eat solid food, that's enough time. And again, certain dog breeds do mature faster than others. So again, there's not an exact science on that. Your specific breed of choice, research it, and you'll know that for yourself. The other thing I want to mention about breed of choice, here's an important thing. A lot of people will choose a breed based on just the aesthetics of the breed, which is all well and good, but that doesn't mean that the dog and what they're bred for is a lifestyle match for you. If you're a kind of person who is secure, just sitting at home most of the time, you don't like athletics, you don't like going outside, then don't get the type of dog that requires a lot of, athletic activity or mental stimulation, because then you're going to have a problem on your hands. All dogs should be trained. This much I will tell you. In the most basic sense of the word, get them to stay, get them to sit, get them to come when you call them, train them properly, desensitize them to noises at the very least. That's the minimal of what you should do. The more experienced people, take your dogs out, introduce them to new things, to new ideas, new training methods, keep them occupied, give them a rich, full life. But again, the reverse can happen too. If you're a kind of person who's always outside, don't get the little tiny dog that needs to stay inside, and then you're away from the dog all the time. Your dogs have to be present in your life in the way that fits your lifestyle.
Right. So how old was Diana when you brought her home?
Diana was 3 months of age.
So at the start of the video, I said she was few weeks, but I think it was few months old, because the image you showed me was when Diana was resting on a table, and you clicked that image.
Oh, well, the picture, the very first picture I have of her when I saw her at her breeder's place, and she was a little puppy with really abnormally large ears. I don't think she ever fully grew into her ears.
I'll just give a reference of Grayson a little bit, because one of the most important reasons why we're doing this is because I personally feel that people need to be more open about dogs, and
More what?
the people need to be more open about dogs, and having a difficult dog such as Grayson, if you can do it, I think I would like to encourage other people to do it as well if they can. So I'm going to go on to that, if you're okay with it.
Well, sure. I'll discuss Grayson for you. Grayson is not the first dog that it was considered difficult that I adopted. We talk about breeders, but I've also had dogs that from rescues too. This is another important point too, that not every person out there who likes a particular dog breed has to get the dog from a breeder. There's plenty of purebred dogs available, sometimes in shelters and sometimes from rescue organizations that, that specialize in a particular breed. And sometimes you do have dogs with issues that can wind up becoming wonderful dogs when you adopt them if you do the work. So Rahan mentioned Grayson. One of my two dogs had a former owner. Grayson is what's called an owner surrender. That means another owner had him, and for whatever reason, things were not working out right, and some problems happened, and then I get called in because I'm an experienced owner, and I decide to adopt him. So Grayson had a few issues. So the lack of socialization, see, his former owners kind of knew that they weren't doing the right thing with him because they didn't have the time for him. So they found another owner for him, somebody with experience. And so I knew what I was getting into. First thing I did was started introducing him to new things, getting him used to a new life, new sounds, new experiences, because that's what you should do with a dog. And he was always a little bit on the nervous side, but he was building his confidence back up. Then I made a mistake by taking him to dog parks. Now, a lot of times dog parks can be very safe and healthy, and people bring well-trained dogs to dog parks, but sometimes people could bring unsocialized, problematic, sometimes
Difficult,
aggressive dogs.
difficult dogs sometimes.
Yeah, to a dog park where the interactions with other dogs turn into a fight. So Grayson was attacked at a dog park. And I blew my gasket at the owner because I found out after the incident that that particular person had a history of his dog attacking other dogs, yet he still brought his dog to a dog park. I mean, aside from the fact that this guy just did not care about whether or not his dog was harming other people, that's a huge amount of inconsiderate behavior. And please, if you know that your dog has an issue, evaluate your dog properly. And if you can change the behavior, respect the fact that your dog has certain boundaries and don't force them into a situation. So, and I say this because after that particular incident, Grayson's skittishness with other dogs grew to him being dog reactive. He does not get along with other dogs other than Diana. So I don't bring him out where he can be set up for failure. I don't put him into situations where he is going to wind up in an altercation or reacting to another dog. I respect his limitations and I adjust for him. And he is loved and happy. He does have socialization. He has another dog that he lives with, Diana, and they love each other tremendously. And I respect the fact that, Grayson has his boundaries and that's it. Now, let's talk about rescues for a minute. So there is a contingent of people there. I'm using that word contingent again. Okay. There's a lot of dog advocates out there who believe in something called the adopt, don't shop mentality, which means don't go to breeders at all, adopt from rescues, adopt from shelters. I do agree if you can do that, if what you're looking for is available, do that first. Absolutely. I don't agree with no breeders because, as I mentioned before, breeders exist for a reason if they're ethical breeders who love the breed. But there are dogs out there who need loving homes. There's so many good dogs there that would flourish under the love and care of your home. Research breeds, see what fits you. Sometimes you don't even have to get a purebred anything. Sometimes the best dogs in the world are just mixed with who knows what, and they're just fantastic animals that just need a good chance in a loving home. Go for them first. The euthanasia thing that some animal shelters do for the sake of population control is something that I view as unethical. I want you to imagine this, and this is why we need to stop unethical breeding, that dogs get overbred, they wind up in shelters, and the shelter runs out of space. And so what they do, the dogs that are there the longest, who could be a fantastic dog, completely healthy, completely loving, they wind up getting killed. They wind up getting euthanized because they need the space, because they don't have room anymore. Morally wrong, in my opinion. That is not a reason to kill a dog. We do have Some states here in the United States, like Delaware, was the first state in the US to make sure that their animal shelters are no longer kill shelters. They have increased funding for adoption events, things like that, and sometimes worked with other states to, ship out dogs that if people were looking for a certain type of dog, hey, we have this here. They're basically, trying to place dogs as opposed to doing something horrible to them, like euthanizing them. And I'm sorry, but I have a real problem with the actual act or the person who decides that, hey, I'm just going to give them, euthanasia drugs just because it's my job. You know what?
Well, while we in Pakistan lack availability of shelters for dogs, I mean, there are a few organizations working for animal rights, working for these stray animals. But most of the times, whenever you go out, you would see a dog or two in almost every street in Pakistan. And it's not just in these in a particular area, but if you start traveling, you will find a lot of overpopulation of stray animals. Now, the thing which I'm trying to get to is that in Pakistan, whenever I see, and this is most of the times, someone having a dog as an adopted or bred dog, they would have a pure breed, mostly a pure breed dog. I have not seen people adopting dogs which were stray animals before, and now they are. I might be wrong. There might be people who have done that. I'm sure there are people who have done that. But in my case, I have never came across anyone in Pakistan who have adopted a dog from street and they shelter them in their own home and they have adopted them as their own, just as Mark mentioned. So this is something that we are lacking in Pakistan. I don't know about your particular country where you're watching from, but I hope that everyone out there would just take a second to realize that it is not so hard to go out and be nice to these animals and take them home. If you really want a dog, you might actually get a stray dog who has been turned to a shelter and who has been trained well to turn out to be an excellent one.
You got to keep something in mind. Dogs, for the most part, are really our loving creatures. Like I said earlier, we bred them to be our companions. Even dogs that are out in the wild streets. Now, I understand I'm not going to advocate that you approach a strange dog, because if you don't know the dog's temperament and if you don't know how to read a dog's body language, slow down on your approach there. Keep your distance. But if a dog seems friendly to you, befriend them. Who knows? Maybe you could wind up taking that dog home if they're out in the street, if you're in a country where they live out there. That's another thing, is that dogs and living environment is culturally different. We talked about this before, about utilitarian versus pets. I live in a house, actually a condo. My dogs have free run of my house. One is asleep on the couch to the side. The other one is asleep on the floor over here. They will jump into my bed with me when I'm ready to go to sleep. I'll wake up and I'll find them like this, waiting to have their bellies rubbed. In other words, they are family members. There is no part of my home which is denied them. They can sit and sleep wherever they want. This is their home. But not everybody has a dog that lives in the house. Some people, as Rohan mentioned, will have a dog for protection, and that dog will be on the outskirts of the perimeter of the home. I'm not going to get into whether or not I feel that is good or bad. I understand that everyone's got different needs. The important thing is, if you are doing that, the dog has to have shelter from the elements. It has to be housed properly. So even if he's outside protecting the perimeter, there's got to be a place where he can go to if it's too hot, if it's too cold, if it's raining. that they have comfort and protection.
There's something that we discussed when we were talking, when Mark and I was talking earlier, that many times when you take your dog out, you do not leash them. You just unleash your dogs and walk around them. But there is a potential problem with doing that, and Mark has a very strong opinion of that. Mark is going to share what he thinks, and you may reflect on that. Mark.
I do have a problem with people who walk their dogs without a leash because it's a recipe for disaster. No matter how well trained your dog is, there can always be a circumstance where your dog can run away from you. The dog can see an animal, for instance, and before you know it, you lose control. Your dog is not leashed to you and your dog is running away. Your dog starts running away, a car comes. It's over at that point. Sometimes your dog gets loose because it's unsupervised, it's unleashed. Another dog in the vicinity who might be the same, unleashed, sees it, and before you know it, they think each other is a threat and you have a fight on your hands. There's only good reasons to make sure that you respect the law and keep your dog leashed or harnessed. I actually use a harness. I'll explain this one for those who are inexperienced out there. I don't like having a collar and leash around the neck. A collar for identification, yes, but when you're going out with your dog to restrain them, I don't like this because you can cut off their air supply, you can create issues with their trachea. I use a harness which basically goes around their midsection and over their shoulder blades. The brand I use is called the Freedom Harness, and I'm giving that information out. They are not sponsoring me in any shape or form. I just happen to like the Freedom Harness because of the way it gently restrains your dog and makes them easier to handle if they're pulling too much and does not put any pressure on any vital part of their body. Again, this is about their comfort. It's about their safety as well. And again, sometimes when you're out with your dog, another reason to make sure that your dog stays leashed is a person might get frightened by your dog, and dogs can react to that fright.
Yeah.
You know?
Someone like me might actually get, even though I love dogs, I do scare. They do scare me a lot. Yeah.
We'll get him over that, folks. Don't worry. You see, actually, that's a good thing here, is that we're having a discussion, and one of us here is a lifelong dog owner. Another person has a little bit of a fear of dogs.
Not
that's
just
okay.
fear on dogs, not
Mhm.
just fear on dogs, but have also been literally chased by two dogs at two different occasions. And I got out alive.
Well, that's good. Otherwise you wouldn't be able to do this show, and then I have to look for a new co-host. Okay. And I'll give you a compliment. You're hard to replace. All right. So I'm glad that all worked out.
My neighbor have a German Shepherd, and I see most of the times when they take their dog out, it's not leashed in any way. It's just free. And whenever I look at that dog from, say, 10, 20 feet of distance, I quickly try to, get to safety. And that's exactly what Mark mentioned a while ago, that you may be very good with your dog, but some other people who are scared, and this scared element of a human being is detected by a dog, and the dog might think of this as hostility towards their owner. You can kind of imagine where I'm going with that.
Bingo. I'm glad
That
you said that.
hostility, that hostility
You froze
will
up.
turn to something unpleasant for the dog as well as for the person. I just hope to meet both Diana and Grayson someday. And when I meet Grayson, I hope to not become his afternoon or evening meal. So yeah, that would be my best comment on this part?
Well, I am a responsible dog owner, so obviously I would not let that happen. Okay.
All right, on that note, we will end this discussion here. I would like every one of you to take care of yourselves as well as your dogs. If you have something to speak about, you can comment below. Make sure that you are respectful and that in that manner. If you like our video, give us a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button. See you next week.